The night was colder than usual, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and makes even silence shiver. The last train had already thundered past the old wooden station, leaving behind only the echo of its wheels and the whisper of smoke. Curling into the starless sky, Emma sat slumped on the weathered bench, her head resting against her travel bag, her eyelids heavy from exhaustion. She had been running all day, running from memories, from decisions she couldn't undo, from a city that had turned its back on her dreams. The flickering lamp above her cast a lonely halo of light on her face, soft and tired. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, and the faint smell of rain carried on the wind. When she finally stirred, she realized the platform was empty. The train gone. The sound gone, time itself seemed gone. Panic hit her first, sharp and cold. She rose quickly, clutching her bag, looking both ways down the tracks as if another train might magically appear. But there was nothing, just the endless dark stretching out over the plains. That's when she heard it. The low rumble of hooves against gravel, slow and steady, like a heartbeat approaching through the night. Her pulse quickened as the sound grew nearer. Out of the darkness came a figure, tall, broad-shouldered, astride a horse the color of storm clouds. The rider wore a dusted hat and a long, brown coat that flapped in the wind like wings of an old tail. As he dismounted, the light from the station lamp caught his face, rugged, tanned by the sun, eyes that held more stories than words ever could. He spoke in a calm, gravelly voice. "Miss, you're a long way from anywhere. You missed your train." Emma hesitated, her voice trembling. I fell asleep. "The next one's in the morning." He nodded slowly, his gaze drifting toward the horizon. "Morning 6 hours away, and there's nothing here but coyotes and cold." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a silver flask. "You look like you could use a bit of warmth." She stared at him, unsure whether to trust him or not, but something about his tone, the quiet steadiness, they made her take it. The liquid burned her throat but eased her shaking. "Thank you," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "Name's Jack Rayner. Most folks around here call me Cowboy, but I ain't been much of one lately." His voice carried a sadness, a kind of worn-down honesty that made her chest tighten. "Emma," she replied softly. "I was heading home. Or at least I thought I was." Jack chuckled, a dry sound that held more truth than humor. "Funny thing about home is sometimes it ain't where you think it is." The storm rolled, in slow and heavy, lightning slicing the sky in the distance. Jack turned toward his horse. "There's an inn about 5 miles down the trail. Not much, but it's dry and warm. You shouldn't be out here alone." Emma hesitated. Every instinct told her not to trust a stranger, but the empty station and the biting wind left her no choice. "I don't have much money," she admitted. Jack shook his head. "Didn't ask for any." He offered his hand, rough and calloused. "Come on, you'll freeze out here." Her hand trembled as she took his, and he helped her onto the horse, steadying her gently. The warmth of the animal and the steady rhythm of hooves gave her a strange sense of safety. As they rode through the darkness, the silence between them wasn't awkward. It was almost comforting. The world felt smaller, simpler, like the storm had washed away everything else. After a while, she spoke softly over the wind. "Why'd you help me?" Jack didn't look back. "Because someone once helped me when I was lost. And because no one deserves to be alone in a storm." The lightning flashed again, revealing his face, strong but tired like a man carrying ghosts. She didn't ask more. The night was too fragile for questions. When they finally reached the inn, It stood like a forgotten relic of another era, its sign swaying in the wind. Jack dismounted and tied his horse, then turned to her. "You'll be safe here. I'll make sure the keeper gives you a room." She wanted to say thank you, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she just looked at him. Really looked, and saw something behind his eyes. Loneliness, loss, maybe even kindness. The kind of kindness that doesn't ask for anything in return. As she stepped inside the dimly lit inn, the warmth hit her face. She turned back once, but Jack was already walking into the storm, his figure fading into the night. She didn't know his story yet, but something told her deep down that their paths weren't done crossing. Not yet. Before she went upstairs, the innkeeper, an old woman with kind eyes, once said softly, "You were lucky, dear. Not many strangers stop for folks out here anymore. That man, he's got a past." Emma looked out the window at the fading storm. "Don't we all?" she whispered. The storm had passed by dawn, leaving behind a sky the color of pale gold and sorrow. The air outside the old inn smelled of wet earth and pine, and the wind carried the soft hum of morning, distant roosters, creaking shutters, and the first rays of sun cutting through the mist. Emma awoke to the sound of hooves outside. For a moment she thought it was all a dream. The cowboy, the storm, the ride through the night. But when she looked out through the cracked window pane, she saw him, Jack Rayner, the cowboy who had appeared out of nowhere and disappeared into the storm just as silently. He was standing by his horse, brushing its mane, his hat tipped low over his eyes. Something about the way he moved was calm yet burdened, like a man who had made peace with his pain, but never stopped carrying it. Emma hurried downstairs, still clutching the thin shawl around her shoulders. The innkeeper smiled knowingly. "He's been out there since sunrise," she said softly. "Didn't even ask for a room. Just paid for your stay and told me to make sure you got breakfast." Emma rose. "He paid? But why?" The woman shrugged. "You'll have to ask him that yourself." Outside, the ground was still slick from the rain. Jack turned as she approached, and for a brief second, she saw something in his eyes. Relief, maybe, or regret. "Morning," he said quietly, tightening the saddle strap. "You sleep all right?" "Yes," she replied. "But you shouldn't have paid for me. I don't even know you." He smiled faintly, eyes on the horizon. "Sometimes it's better that way. People expect less when they don't know your name." Emma frowned. "You told me your name last night." Jack paused, then gave a small nod. "Yeah, I guess I did." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was like the kind of quiet that exists between two souls who understand something unspoken. Finally, Emma asked, "Why did you help me?" Jack leaned against his horse, the reins loose in his hand. "A long time ago," he began, "I used to ride these trails with someone. A woman. Kind, stubborn, beautiful, just like you. We were supposed to leave this place together, start over somewhere new. But she missed her train too." Emma's breath caught. "What happened to her?" Jack's eyes darkened, reflecting the sky that was beginning to cloud again. "She never made it home. A storm came through, worse than last night's. I found her wagon 3 days later, overturned by the river. Been riding ever since, trying to help whoever I can before the next storm hits. I guess it's my way of making peace with what I couldn't change." Emma felt her chest tighten. She had left her city for the same reason, running from loss, from love that had ended before it began. For the first time in months, she felt like someone truly understood that kind of pain. "You can't spend your life fixing the past," she whispered. He looked at her then, really looked, and something in his gaze softened. "No," he said. but I can make sure someone else doesn't end up in the dark because of it." Before she could respond, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, worn leather pouch. "Here," he said, holding it out to her. "What is it?" she asked. "Something that kept me safe all these years." She hesitated, then took it. Inside was a silver pendant engraved with a horse running beneath a crescent moon. The metal was warm, as if it had been held 1,000 times. Emma looked up, her voice trembling. "I can't take this." "You can," he said gently, "because you remind me of someone who would have wanted you to have it." The moment stretched between them, fragile, pure, almost sacred. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain again. She wanted to ask him to stay, to ride with her wherever she was going next. But before she could, he swung up onto his horse, hat low over his brow. "Where will you go now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Wherever." The next lost soul needs a ride, and with that he turned his horse toward the horizon. The sound of hooves echoed softly against the wet earth, fading into the distance, until all that was left was the wind and the weight of the moment he left behind. Emma stood there, holding the pendant close to her heart. It felt like more than just a gift. It felt like a promise, a reminder that even in the loneliest places, kindness still rode through the storm. She whispered to the empty road, "Thank you, Cowboy." Then slowly she walked back inside, knowing that her life, and maybe even her heart, had changed forever. As the screen fades to black, the narrator's voice echoes softly. "Sometimes the people who cross your path, for a moment, leave behind a lifetime of meaning."